And thank you for joining us right here on Sunrise at CU, just in time for your favorite segment. And here we talk real life conversations. Today on Our Views, I have something very interesting that actually triggered today's conversation. But before that, I will, reveal the guests today, this morning. Well, they're not guests, they're the usual people that you see, the beautiful ladies, all looking amazing and gorgeous as they always do, is none other than Apollo Sarah and Agi Owase. Good morning, ladies. Once again, it's so good to be here this morning. I don't know, do you sort of feel the breeze in the studio and the lighting outside? It's such a good day to be looking beautiful and to go for cocktails or mocktails or whatever.
Early.
No, there's nothing ever wrong with just getting yourself a glass of orange juice on a beautiful Tuesday bright morning. It's absolutely good. However, today the discussion on Our Views is I want to look at the too cool to care syndrome. And actually what triggered this particular conversation is I saw a post online and I felt it was quite devastating, the kind of generation that we are slowly turning into. And this particular post read as follows. Now, people are very mean-spirited and nasty. I have learned this the hard way. Being disrespectful is some sort of badge of honor now. It's not just young people, it's all groups, all colors and all ages. No more do we practice setting the tone by being gracious. We don't respect each other independently anymore. We feel like everybody has to earn the respect. That's not true. Either you are going to respect people or you are not, and it's that simple. Now, when this particular post went viral, someone still responded and said, yep, hiding behind their keyboard just to be a bully, making memes out of serious situations, videoing people while they die and laughing about people's trauma is quite insane. And that is why today we're having the conversation, is the generation that we are living in, the people that we are living in becoming too cool to care that every single thing you're like, you'll be fine. Or are people just fed up and, continuously seeing all these things going on in the world? You just be like, but now that's a normal thing, people are dying. Okay, yeah, that's normal. Are we becoming less emotional and even less empathetic? So the question to you ladies, and the first one that I would pose is, do you think that this syndrome of being too cool to care actually does exist in your perception? Let's first break that.
Well, I don't think that it's a syndrome. I think that people are going through a lot, and by going through a lot, they're trying to project everything on other people. I will just read to you something that I saw online, and that was yesterday, and somebody tweeted and he said, everything inside me is turned off. I don't care about so many things anymore, and I don't care that I no longer care. So you can see it's really like extreme. She doesn't care that she doesn't care anymore. It's like, I think she has so much that is going on in her life, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of problems. And just like, sometimes you need somebody to talk to, especially when you're going through something. But people are very quick to turn you down. They're very quick to misjudge or judge you. They're very quick to I seem to forget the word. But they do not accept you. People do not want to talk to people anymore. Like, if you are going through something, you'll actually approach somebody and you want to confide in them and you want to talk to them. They'll tell you, hey, what I'm going through could be worse than what you're going through. You understand? I remember there's a time when we had this almost close to this kind of conversation. So for me, I don't think it's a thing. If anything, it is something that needs to be tackled from the grassroots, from the bottom. It has to do with a lot of mental health issues that are going on. A lot of it has to do with mental health.
Okay, so Sarah, this one I'll pose to you. In your perception, this life of the journey that you have lived so far, would you say that the too cool to care syndrome is an aspect of people are just emotionally detached, or are people dealing with so much?
First of all, when you in your preamble you talked about generation, I think you generalize by saying generations, because a lot of people are in different age groups
Yes.
are not living in the same generation or are not born in the same generation. Like say for instance, the children who were born in 2000s cannot relate with me who was born in the 1980s. Do you understand what I mean?
We're
So they're
looking
different
at
generations.
this generation.
So you're specifically
Yes.
talking about which generation, which age bracket exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about Generation Z?
Millennium.
Are you talking, no, millennials were born
millennials.
in the 1980s. So are you talking about the generation that was born in 2000s moving forward?
I think it's
Just
it should be
exactly.
like
We need
80.
to understand
we are
which one.
looking. Okay,
We need
let's
to understand which generation, because each generation has its own traumas and has its own problems. Do you understand? But to answer your question, too cool to care, I think it is just a pretext. You're just pretending not to care, but the truth is everybody cares. We all care. So when somebody posts something online, they care about what it is that they're posting. Even when people say I don't care, you are triggered. The fact that you posted, had the time to write that we don't care about this, you care about it. Because if you didn't care about it, you would not even want to respond about it. And number two, respect is earned. Because I can be civil with you or cordial does not mean I should respect you. You have to earn somebody's respect. You have to earn it. It is not that you have to prove yourself. No, you have to earn it by just simply being a kind person, simply being somebody with integrity, simply being an honest individual, simply being a decent human being. That is all it takes. Be a decent human being. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want to be done to you. So I disagree with that. Respect has to be earned. Because a lot of people think that, oh, because I am me, you must respect me. No, you have to act in a way that is going to make it come naturally for me. Do not demand of it.
Okay, now according to psychologists, and before we continue the conversation, I would like to define actually the too cool syndrome and where it comes from. Now the too cool syndrome is actually lacking enthusiasm, affection and cordiality. Then my next question would be that first of all, the generation that we're talking about this morning is us. It's you and me. It's our children.
Not me.
It's our age group.
You
It's
made
our
the
age
ones
group.
that are
It is our
begging
age
to
group. It is
differ.
our
One
parents.
after
It's
me.
the children that we are giving birth to. It is the children that are in school right now. It is the children that are in university right now. It is the teenagers that are in college. It is us seated on the panel. That is the age group that I'm actually looking. But do you think that nowadays empathy has been overrated? Is it something that exists now in today's generation?
What do you mean overrated? Listen, empathy is it's a feeling that comes naturally. It's an emotion that comes naturally.
Comes naturally. Not everyone has it.
No. Everybody has
It
a
can be
degree
learnt,
of
though.
empathy. Everybody
can
has
learn
a
to
degree.
be
To be
empathetic.
empathetic is to put yourself in another person's shoes,
Which not everyone can do.
When you
can learn it.
Exactly like Aggie says, you can learn it, and sometimes you can have it. Many times, empathy comes when you can almost relate to another person's circumstance because you are putting yourself in that other person's shoes. Like, oh my goodness, that happened to her, that's horrible. I know somebody who that happened to, or it has happened to me, or I've seen it happen to a loved one or whatnot. It's not overrated. It is something that is there. We all care, but everybody cares, even people who say they don't care. It's just that people have their guard up so high because of the different traumas that they're experiencing or have experienced. Because when you lack empathy or sympathy for people, there's something that has made you that way. And I think with this generation that you're talking about, that is from the 2000s, from the 2000s moving forward, it is a very damaged generation that has been hurt by the generation before, who are their parents, who probably did not listen, who did not raise them in love, who did not tell them that their voices matter, who did not even tell them that they mattered. Do you understand? So it is just hurt people. You get? When you're hurt, you're going to move that on to the next person because you want somebody else to take away that pain that you're feeling inside you. So people pretend not to care, but everybody gives a damn.
But then the question would be, why do we have to pretend not to care?
thing is,
What
you're
is so
putting your
wrong?
guard
What
up.
is so wrong with caring? Because
You're
some
putting your
people-
guard up.
Let me give an example on for example, the male side. For them the people that have interacted with, especially the boy child, feel not caring is actually a good thing. You know, it is a trait of maturity. It is a trait, like I mentioned in my preamble, it is a badge of honor for especially especially when it comes to the male side, they feel like them showing their empathetic and sympathetic side is a weakness. So why do we have to pretend not to care?
In the case of men, or young boys, it trickles down to society and how society has raised them.
Okay.
And the standard and norms for men, you're supposed to be strong, don't show weakness, because if you show weakness, then you're going to give your enemies an attack advantage onto you. So we hear young men and boys saying, oh, don't cry, don't express yourself, do not talk. So we have completely muzzled the male sex, like all the boys and the men, we have completely muzzled them, and that is why they grow up to even getting into relationships and they cannot express themselves. They, bury their head in the sand, or they run away from every type of confrontation. Or confrontation, I mean conversation, not even confrontation. They would rather fight with their hands than sit down and have
and talk.
a civil conversation. You get that? So it trickles. So we have to start changing the mindset of how we raise our boys.
Yeah. And besides that, even I think it now cuts across even to the ladies, but I feel like we are shutting down expressing emotions, especially negative emotions.
Why?
Because that is what happened. That is because Sarah they're talking about you have to be strong and all that. But then again, I also mentioned whereby you want to express yourself, your negative emotions, but you're bullied, you are shut down. Even on social media, when you put out a post where maybe you could be lamenting, the other day, the former Miss USA, Chelsea Christie, who committed suicide. If you saw her last post before she committed suicide, it was a very positive post. And this was someone going through a lot of depression. And I've always talked about, what if she had actually poured her heart out there and say maybe probably something she was going through, there could have been one or two people who would have stepped in and helped her in a certain way, and maybe it could have prevented her from committing suicide. But because there is this notion of you have to be positive about everything, you don't have to cry. I mean, life goes on, life moves on, irrespective of what negative emotions or negative things that are going on in your life. And that is what has caused the cropping up of the not cool to care kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, if you are in a state where you are depressed, trust me, it will be very hard to understand what somebody else is going through, because you're already going through something. I have heard of situations where someone is like, I don't love you, or I don't care for you. And I'm like, and the person is like, well, I do not care as well. I mean, I'm going through so much, so I couldn't care less if you cared also. And these are things that people are saying on a daily, and it's becoming a norm. It's becoming a very thing that happens so often. So for me, I think let's get back to acknowledging emotions, acknowledging especially negative emotions and what we are going through. It starts and stems from that, because if you do not acknowledge what you're going through, it will be very hard for you to acknowledge what someone else is going through. And Sarah talked about empathy, and by the way, sympathy, being sympathetic and empathetic, they do go hand in hand. And these are things that can be learned. At the end of the day, they are human values. If you're human, then you will be empathetic about what someone else is going through. So
this is the other thing. We should normalize seeking out professionals to help us understand and process the things that we are going through. Instead of saying, oh, I don't care. You don't care about me, I also don't care about you. No, that is absolute garbage. It's rubbish.
It's a wrong way to
You
live.
need to normalize seeking out a therapist, a counselor. Google is your friend. Just go and type in the browser, I feel like this. And you're going to have hundreds of thousands of articles that are going to help you process what it is you're feeling. Also, the thing about it gets misconstrued that being positive, because you're a positive person does not mean you have negative thoughts or have moments where you just feel down. But even when you have those downs in your life, acknowledge them and say, yes, I feel like crap today, but you know what? I am going to actively and deliberately, intentionally do something to make me feel better about myself. Your well-being, your intellectual well-being, your emotional well-being, your wellness is 1000% your responsibility, not another person. So if you keep on finding yourself in circumstances that just stress you out, you're putting yourself in a position where you're with people who don't make you feel loved. It's important to feel loved. Someone may be expressing love to you in a language that you don't recognize. It's not my language. We talk about this a lot. So love people in their languages and also communicate. This is how I feel love. I don't want gifts. I don't want gifts.
I want sushi.
I want you to, hey, I want food. It's a love language.
But also,
or
yeah.
I want you to spend time with me. Communicate your
Yes.
love language. Like, love me. This is how I feel loved. So don't love
And
me
this
how
is
you
how I want to feel.
Exactly.
cared
This is
for.
how I want to feel.
Okay.
And besides the
Well,
love bit of it,
just-
I'd love
just
people to
before
also
that-
communicate how they feel, and people should be allowed to express themselves emotionally if they are going through something. Let it be okay for people to express themselves without being bashed, without being shut down.
Well, I came across a video, and this was actually on TikTok, that showed a certain young teenager that was actually expressing her emotions and feelings when it comes to, I feel too cool to care. Have a look. Particular end to that video, and it says, our generation thinks it's cool to not care. It's not. Effort is cool, caring is cool, being loyal is cool. Maybe you should try it out sometime. Now that we have digested and looked into the aspect that actually that too cool to care syndrome does exist, and you know, it's actually an underlying issue, and probably people are actually covering it up for past traumas that they went through. How can we best teach people how to be more empathetic and sympathetic towards others?
First of all, the reason as to why people are afraid to care or pretend not to care is because they're afraid of rejection. Someone who has had their heart broken, and a broken heart is the worst pain, because it is something that is not, it's not a physical pain, it's an emotional pain that you just cannot get out of you. You get, it doesn't have a medication. You could drink yourself crazy, you could use drugs, you could, whatever the case, it doesn't take away the pain. And a lot of people, when they suffer a heartbreak, it could be heartbreak from a lover or a best friend or even family members breaking their hearts, they find themselves in a position where they are afraid to love and be vulnerable with other people like that, because they're like, this is the one person I loved in the whole entire world, and they don't want me. And that right there, when it sinks into your mind, it's hard to unlearn. It's hard to move on, to go on and do and give yourself to the next person. Remember the time when we were talking about the things that we would do for love, the craziest thing that we would do for love? Aggie said that she would never do some of these things that she did before, because your heart is broken. But we need to let people know that it is okay. And for me, I use the mantra. When I walk into a shoe store and I find this beautiful pair of shoes, there's the analogy of don't cry over spilled milk. But find an analogy that is custom made to you. For me, I love shoes. So I see rejection in a way like this. If I walk into a shoe store and I found a beautiful pair of shoes that did not fit me, I'm not going to cry over that pair of shoes. I'm going to take my time, browse, and find another pair. So find an analogy that works to you and use that. Take the deliberate steps and courage to love again. Okay? Love again. Love is a beautiful thing. To love someone, to feel love, to give love to somebody else. Have you ever been in love to the point that you don't care if
I love how you are saying that.
Green and blue all appear white.
Yes.
Everything.
To be in love is a beautiful thing.
And to
it's
be
not-
loved in
and to be
return.
loved is such a beautiful thing. So give love. Be kind, even on days when you don't feel like it. It's going to come back to you. You know, like this person, like, I cannot. Just master up the energy and be kind.
You know,
Be nice. Love. It's going to come back full circle.
To
You
you.
cannot receive what you don't give, period. If you're going to go around with a pout on your face, I don't care, I don't give a damn. But that is how nobody is going to want to love you. Nobody is going to want to work with you. And it's not even just love and relationships. It is work. People wanting to collaborate with you or partner with you, and you have this attitude. No, it is scary to be vulnerable, but it takes courage. Takes a lot of courage, and it is so cool.
Listening to you this morning, I am truly convinced that when I actually said in the preamble that, you know, this generation is filled with people who feel that they are too cool to care, but you see, it starts with you burning those bridges. As hard and as difficult and as distasteful as it may sound, you have been broken, you know, you have been taken advantage of, you have been stepped on, you have been humiliated. Those bridges and those walls that you've built, I'm speaking to you this morning, it's time for you to take them down. Meanwhile, I'm speaking to you, but I'm also speaking to myself, because I would be a hypocrite to say that I have not fallen victim of the too cool to care syndrome. I mean, it's something that happens that sometimes you're like, you know what, I really don't care. I've been through a lot of things. I'm dealing with a lot of things. Why should I care about what you're going through? But again, it is time for you to burn those bridges. And for the people out there who feel that they are too cool to care, no. There is nothing cool about you not caring. It's actually a very toxic way to live. But again, can we just learn to be positive and learn to treat each other with respect?
Like
I
you
feel
have
like
that.
the world would be a better place if you walked up into someone's life and you told them exactly what you wanted from them. Do not come. You see, the reason as to why we have people, or the reason as to why personally many times or several times I have gone through the phase where I feel I am too cool to care, is because someone else in my past hurt me. So when certain things unfold, when a friend comes and tells me, oh, I've been dumped, I'm like, madam, move on. These things have happened.
I'd like
Why?
to,
Because we have past traumas that we are dealing with. First things first, get rid of those.
Yes, and as you speak of that, there is one thing that I truly believe in, is you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely.
So if you have things things that you're going through in your life, tough situations, negative emotions, whatever it is, you have to sit back and work on yourself, because, like, I mean, it's literal. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you do not have. And the other thing, it might be difficult, you know, to be empathetic and sympathetic, especially when you're going through depression and all those things. But sometimes you just have to look at the positive side of life. Besides, there's so many bad things that are happening in this world, there are also good things that are happening in the world. And at the end of the day, the bad cannot put out the bad. Fire cannot put out fire. So how about you spill some water and be positive and not just take it as it is what it is.
I will end by saying this: it is not cool to not care, please. It is not a sign of maturity. It is not a sign of growth. It's actually a sign of weakness and a toxic way to live. And I'll end by a quote that was written by Bridget Nicole, and she says, never apologize for being sensitive or emotional. It's a sign that you have a big heart and that you aren't afraid to let others see it. Showing your emotions is a sign of strength. See you next time.
Yes, and one more thing, when you hold or restrain yourself from giving and loving, it hurts you more. You're like a fish in water that does not want to swim. So honey, please swim. Well, I hope you had a great time with us right here on the show on Sunrise at Sea. And I leave you with a beautiful quote from Beyonce. She did the song I Was Here, and in the verse she says, I was here, I lived, I loved. And that is what I think everybody should aspire to be remembered by. Somebody who lived their life and somebody who loved while they lived. Well, until tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. from me and the ladies, Shivan and Aggie, we wish you a great day. Be kind, live, love, and follow SOPs also. Until tomorrow, be safe.